I'm a journalist, Mr. Bellows. If I tell my editor I'm going to write 1,500 words on MPs on the make, and then I turn in 1,000 words instead and say, "Oh, but my desk was a bit rickety, so I couldn't write as much," he's not going to be very fucking happy, is he? Mr. Bellows didn't see the analogy, apparently. Frankly, Sally doubted if Mr. Bellows would recognise an analogy if one punched him in the face. Pressing end call, she yanked aside the mouthpiece of the hands-free headset. She was having a pig of a day already, and it was barely 10 o'clock. She'd kill for a cigarette. "I am a person who doesn't smoke," she reminded herself, trying to remember the exact wording Sebastian the hypnotherapist had used. "I can think about having a cigarette, but I make the choice not to have one." It wasn't working. Sitting back in her seat, she looked out of the window at the green rolling East Sussex countryside, trying to let go of her anger, as her life coach Mina kept telling her to do. "Shift, focus," she told herself sternly. She picked up her mulberry bag from the seat next to her and started to rifle through it, frowning as she spotted the mulberry wallet which, being a totally different shade of brown to the bag, never failed to jar. Really, she'd been right to end things with Noel. What kind of person bought you a tan mulberry bag for your birthday and then a chocolate-brown mulberry wallet for Valentine's Day? Not that that had been the main reason for the split. A symptom, rather than the whole malaise, she'd told Mina. She wouldn't listen to the little voice that pointed out it had been Noel who'd broken up with her, and she certainly wouldn't dwell on that awful scene when she'd turned up on his doorstep, drunk and sobbing, and he hadn't let her in, just called a cab and waited with her outside until it arrived. Pulling out a red crocodile skin case, Sally extracted her reading glasses before opening up her laptop decisively. Focus, focus, focus. It was only 6 months since she'd last revisited the Kenwood killer case. That awkward interview with Fiona Botsford, the mother of the third victim, but a full 4 years since the whole thing started with the death of Megan Purvis. Of course, it hadn't been a serial killer then, just a seemingly random standalone murder of the type that happened sometimes. A body had been found in woods to the east of Hampstead Heath. Though Sally had lived in London at one time, she was a Fulham girl and hadn't ever ventured to the vast expanse of grass and woodland to the north of the city, so had been taken aback to find that what was almost a wilderness existed so close to civilization. The scale of the heath had unnerved her, with its hidden glades and miles of footpaths where you could walk without seeing another person and end up losing all sense of direction. That first time she'd driven up to North London, cursing her stupidity when she became completely gridlocked in traffic around Croydon. She'd spent nearly a week hanging around the Purvises' house, talking to anyone who went in or out, offering money around like it was going out of fashion, and clocking up 13 parking tickets. Persistence had paid off, though. It nearly always did, as far as Sally was concerned. She'd hit the jackpot when she'd offered a massive donation to the charity of Helen Purvis's choice, and convinced a close friend of hers that giving an interview was the only way to get the rest of the press pack to back off. She'd been proud of that interview, not to mention relieved. There was a time, back in the 1990s, when she'd been nicknamed the Queen of the Exclusives, dispatched here and there with what was basically a blank checkbook and a hefty expense account. But those days were long gone. Nowadays, everyone was too afraid of losing their jobs to sign off on any payments over £100. Everything was done by committee, so no one's head would end up on the block. Thank God she wasn't based in an office anymore, all of them tiptoeing around eating salads at their desks that they brought from home in plastic containers. The last time she'd been into the Chronicle's offices, it had been like walking into a library, it was so quiet, and all those earnest interns being so self-important, even though they weren't being paid a bean. She'd felt like a den mother or something. So depressing. Of course, there were still a few of the old crowd around, but mostly they'd either been promoted to some sort of executive position, where they sat in an office making pie charts on their computer, or else they were dribbling in a corner in their shiny suits.